Hey everybody, this is So Many Sequels, your book club for movies. I'm Josh.
I'm Garrett.
And I'm David.
Welcome to Sports September, episode 3. We're talking about David's pick this week, which is Disney's Cool Runnings.
Cool Runnings.
Cool Runnings came out in 1993. Before we get into that, though, a reminder, however you're enjoying the show today, be sure to subscribe, whether it's on our YouTube channel or in your favorite podcasting app, wherever you choose to go. We're shooting for a YouTube subscriber goal of 316, so help us get there so we can bump that goal up and keep making this fun show for you guys. All right. Cool Runnings, movie synopsis. 4 Jamaican bobsleighers dream of competing in the Winter Olympics despite never having seen snow. With the help of a disgraced former champion desperate to redeem himself, the Jamaicans set out to become worthy of Olympic selection and go all out for glory. David, what was the box office response reaction to Cool Runnings when it came out?
Hey, the box office response for Cool Runnings was surprisingly pretty good. It was not like the most stellar movie of 1993, which we'll get in. 1993, which we'll get into in a minute. But it did all right. So the movie opened October 1st of 1993 in the number 3 spot with $7 million, just behind Malice, starring Bill Pullman, which brought in 9.2. The Good Son brought in 7.7 in the number 2 spot. Cool Runnings was just ahead of a fellow sports movie, The Program, which is a football movie. And number 5, you had The Age of Innocence rounding out the top 5 with 4.1 million. Cool Runnings would bounce around the top 5 through mid-November, never quite reached number 1. Despite that, it still brought in 68.8 million in the United States. That's the equivalent of a $150 million run today. It brought in 86 million overseas for a worldwide total of $154 million on a $17 million budget in 1992. That's the equivalent of about 37 million today. For the year, Cool Runnings was the number 15 movie of the year, just behind Grumpy Old Men. The number 1 movie of 1993 was, I believe, Jurassic Park. Let me refresh this real quick. Number 2, yes, Jurassic Park was the number 1 movie in 1993, just ahead of Mrs. Doubtfire, The Fugitive, The Firm, and Sleepless in Seattle. Interestingly, Cool Runnings at number 15 is the highest grossing sports movie of the year, ahead of The Program. This is a kind of wild list. The Program, Rookie of the Year, The Sandlot, and Rudy all came out in 1992.
Big sports movies.
Big sports movies, and all of them kind of, I mean, compared to a $68 million haul for Cool Runnings, all kind of like lower. Like Rookie of the Year, I think, did in the 30s. Sandlot did in the 30s. Rudy only made about 20 million in the U.S. That's about it for the box office. I'll let you know that we have done 2 other movies from 1993, and what a trifecta this makes now. So now we've done Cool Runnings, Hocus Pocus, and Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 3. Those are our previous 93 flicks if you want to go find those in our podcast feed.
Wow.
Very kid-friendly year.
Very kid-friendly year, it would seem. Okay, so now, just to kickstart the conversation here, David, why did you pick Cool Runnings?
Well, I remember watching Cool Runnings as a kid and thinking it was really, really funny. And we were doing Sports September. When we first started kicking around the idea, Garrett said he wanted to do a League of Their Own, and I was like, okay, baseball movie. So I'll go with maybe I'll go with a different sport. I don't want to do like 3 baseball movies,
sure,
or anything like that. So I was like, okay, so let me start thinking. I thought about football. I thought about basketball. I thought about golf. And then I thought, yeah, you know what might be fun? We just had the Olympics, so why not an Olympic style movie?
Hey.
And it's the Winter Olympics, so not quite the right ones. But I thought about Cool Runnings. So that's kind of why I want to go something a little bit different, and I thought that our audience pick would probably skew back into more traditional big 3 sport here in America. But yeah, I wanted to go a little international. I wanted to go have a little fun, and this one's more of a kids movie than the other 2 we've watched, but I thought there might still be some opportunities to break down what makes a good sports movie with this.
All right. Well, let me kick off my thought, my first thoughts. I don't want to have David go for a third time in a row here,
Just keep going.
just because it was your pick. So I'll start my first thoughts. I remember watching this movie all the time in school as a kid. Is that built up in my head and exaggerated? Maybe it could be. I don't know, but I feel like it happened a lot. Is it raining during recess? Stay inside and you watch Cool Runnings. Did an assembly get canceled for some reason? The magician got lost? I don't know. You roll in the TV and you watch Cool Runnings. It was very kid friendly. All the characters are pretty animated people and they're like hopeful people and you just want to root for them. I don't want to it feels negative to say they don't have a lot of depth because that's not totally true, but they're pretty like happy people. You know what I mean? In a lot of ways they are kind of like surface level, but there's still a lot of love for them. I mean, my favorite moment is the finale, the final the finish line, the final finish line moment, just because of how wholesome it is. I do wish that we could see a version of the story that isn't told through the Disney lens, the family friendly story, because this is like the cute version, and I just know it's not what really happened, and I would love to see that story. That doesn't take away from this. This is still a fun movie, but I don't know that I'd watch it a lot now that I'm an adult, as much as adults seemed to want me to watch it as a kid.
Yeah.
Garrett, what do you think?
Yeah, I don't disagree too much. It's definitely kid focused, right? I mean, Disney, that was their home run bucket in the 90s. I mean, they were just cranking out kid movie after kid movie. Do we think we can get millions of kids to see this and make us millions of money? Well, let's go ahead and make this movie. And that's kind of what this feels like. Not hating on it, but there is knowing this is like Disney washed really kind of makes it limits it to how good it can be. And that's unfortunate because this is good. It's fun. It's entertaining. Each character is meant to be engaging, is meant to have a bit, if you will. They're all four different personalities of a person who come together to form a team, right? At the end, that's kind of the breakdown of it. And then obviously I love John Candy. Anytime that he shows up and gives an inspirational speech in anything, boy, I'll do whatever he wants. Anytime John Candy gets there and tells me he needs something done, if he talks like he did to me, I'd be like, yes, coach, I'm here for it. And so
he's the polka king of the Midwest.
Exactly. Obviously there's some Josh, you mentioned the lack of depth. There are like strands of depth that they tingle out there, right? Like something bad. He cheated. Oh, and he just wanted to win, right? Like, it's not a whole bunch there. But it is fun. It is meant well. The journey is pretty entertaining. I never lost focus. I was never ready for it to be over. So it's not like a kid's movie that is unwatchable because it's a kid's movie and doesn't grow with adults. But again, obviously knowing it is not the story, it caps it to a certain level, but it is still, I found it quite enjoyable.
Yeah. All right, David, your first thoughts now.
And I think I'm right there with you. I think the word I would use to describe it for the most part is harmless. You know, like it's not like it could have been, but it's not like, from what I can tell, like wildly offensive, or it's not, while it's inaccurate to the true story, it's not like embellished to the extent that it's like, well, wow, they really just put words in people's mouths, or you know what I mean? Like it is kind of a fictionalized version of what happened, but it's also, there's kernels of things that played out similarly, and then they just kind of made it more grandiose. It's lighthearted. It's a good sports comedy. It hits all the right notes. The great thing about a sports movie, and we saw this, I think, with A League of Their Own, is that a sports movie lends itself to a good ensemble. And so you had a lot of different character types. You had sort of the hard, big, tough guy who doesn't want to be friends. You had the rich boy who really wants to do something different with his life. You had the guy whose dream it was to be in the Olympics. And then you have your kind of comedic relief, right? So you have like a good, well-rounded group of characters. You throw in John Candy playing disgruntled coach who doesn't want to be there until he does, So it has a lot of things that as a kid you love. And I agree that it has not aged with me that well, but still had a lot of moments where I did remember, like, oh, I remember thinking that was so funny when he was talking about he's trying to read his Incredible Hulk comic, and Yul Brynner takes it from him, and he's it was something like big bubblehead something like you can't count to 10 unless they're wearing barefoot or wearing sandals or something like that. Very funny. It's a little hammy. You feel like the creators, they were like aware of the subtext of a Jamaican team in a winter sport, but they didn't want to fully go there. They were like, should we address the potential for racism? But we were like, we'll just tap on that just a little bit, but we're not really gonna say anything too deep about it because they want to keep it kind of breezy. So anyway, yeah, it was. I did also. I for the most, I enjoyed myself, but didn't have. It didn't grow up with me like some kids' films kind of can manage to do.
David, I think that's what I mean by Disney wash to some extent is like
Mm-hmm.
you're supposed to understand that Jamaican is subtext for the bigger picture of them being black athletes in a white sport.
Mm-hmm.
It works because Jamaica is such an opposite type of situation where it is such a winter sport that you don't have to throw that text in your face. But that's what it's
Mm-hmm.
there for. I mean, that is the message that you're trying to get. You get to
Mm-hmm.
come together as a team, but it's also strewn about that they don't belong there, that they're not supposed to be here. So there is that
Mm-hmm.
obviously underlying thing, but being a Disney movie, they're going to focus on the other aspects of
Mm-hmm.
it rather than call out the issue that I think they
They
were
can
trying to
kind of
raise.
they can kind of flirt with it by making it about nationality and making it about tradition. These teams that are Swiss and Russian and even America and Canada. They're traditionally cold weather teams. In reality, we'll talk about sort of the historical differences here as we go, I think. But in reality, Jamaica wasn't even the only tropical team with a bobsled team that year.
Right, that's
The
the
Virgin
thing. They
Islands
had
had
to
a team.
alter the story to make it
Yeah, so I
work.
mean, in reality, there probably were aspects. I'm sure there could have been aspects. I'm sure of cultural bias, but it wasn't like Jamaica was the first tropical team to ever have a winter sport athlete. So it feels like it's weird because like and this is only 5 years after the actual Olympics that this happened at. It happened in 1988. This movie comes out in 93, so it's been a short time, but
Hmm.
anyway, you're exactly right, Garrett. I think that they were aware, but they didn't know, or they didn't want to fully address it.
Yeah, and I think that there's probably stories and such that we will never really know about what happened when it comes to how much change this went through in the writing process and the production process. Several people were attached and then dropped. It was a sports drama as initially conceived. So a lot of things changed to get to where it finally ended up, which is being this kind of harmless, inoffensive, inspirational kind of underdog story. But
Mm.
the truth is, they had to tweak reality a bit to get to where they
They had
weren't
to,
quite underdogs in
yeah,
reality. They weren't the only ones. They weren't really even contenders.
no,
But, that's not the good story, I guess.
no, they had to create adversity for them to overcome. And that's also something you see in a lot of sports movies is creating adversity where, like in the Remember the Titans, which we haven't watched for this, but you know, in that season, that team had like no competition. They blew out almost every team they played that year. But the movie makes it seem like they were fighting. They were in it every game and it was a tough. The one close game they had in the movie, they make that game the state championship, even though in reality it was like midway through the season. So like, they try to throw adversity in the way so that these characters can overcome it and these characters can grow and they can bond and stuff like that. It works as a movie. Could they really have explored some topics that are kind of heavy, but for a younger audience with this? I think they could have tried a little bit. But maybe that would have, I don't know, maybe they were just too nervous about what exactly message they were going to send. See, you thought we couldn't overthink this.
Diving into what they
It's
did give
true.
us, again,
It's
I do
true.
think that it is a humorous and enjoyable movie.
Yeah.
Hans
Mhm.
Zimmer did the score I learned in this watch
That's
through.
crazy.
That blew my mind. Did anybody else see
That's
that?
crazy. I
I
did,
did.
but I saw Hans Zimmer.
I
Excuse me?
had a double take. I was like, what? But the music was one thing that stood out. I really thought that was enjoyable. I thought that was fun. I appreciated the cultural aspects that they lent to it, and they did that throughout the movie, and so that was really nice. again, I think each character was really enjoyable. I thought Sanka was fun and a real fun character. I don't understand how his egg never broke. It's got to be the luckiest egg in the world. I mean, come on, that is a lucky little egg. And then you have the leadership of Leon, the
Mm-hmm.
insecurity of Junior, and then big tough guy Yule. And so it is fun to watch those dynamics. It's kind of like Inside Out, if you think about it. Like each individual person represents one piece that just hasn't quite found a way to form a full
Mm-hmm.
person yet. And then when they come together, they form that team, they get on each
Mm-hmm.
other's sides, and it builds to all of these good moments. You have Junior being able to stand up for himself after Yule.
Mm-hmm.
You have Yule softening and being part of the team. So, like, it leads to, again, the generic kind of here's a good team building story.
Mm-hmm. And their stories, I wonder, because I don't think there's any truth to the idea that they failed to make the Summer Olympics
My
thanks
understanding
to
is that
some
they
kind of
were all
tripping.
picked out of, like, they weren't sprinters, they were from the army.
Yeah,
They were Jamaican
yeah.
army people. They already
So,
knew each other and were like they came together, and because a bunch of businessmen thought that Jamaican people would be able to run fast.
and so I think that there is a nice attempt at poetic symmetry with them failing to make the Olympics because of a crash and them sort of like being mad at each other and sort of lashing. And then their Olympic run ends with another crash, but they stand up and they decide they're going to finish the race and stuff like that. They take pride in what they've done to get to that point. I think that's kind of nice. And yes, it is great to see like Yule he hates Junior at first. He's like, oh, I'm going to kill this guy. But to see them they become they had developed like a brotherly like relationship is really nice. Yeah, Sanka played by Dougie Doug, very funny.
Underrated Dougie Doug. Should get more
It's
acting
true.
jobs.
I know. Where's Dougie Doug been? I thought the Dougie was about him.
Teach him how. There's a lot of fun. There's quotable stuff in this movie, is where I'm going,
Mhm.
basically.
Oh yeah.
And I really love the little affirmation they get going when he's like, I see pride, I see power, I
Mhm.
see a badass mother who won't take no crap off nobody.
Mhm.
And I'm wondering if The Rock ripped it off when he did his little rap, the Rock rap, when he said, it's about
It's about
pride, it's about
It's about
power.
power.
He probably did.
Right? And then of
That's
course
pretty good.
their little rhyme they do before they rush off into the I don't
Yes.
remember it and I don't have it up right
Oh,
now.
we'll come back to it. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
I thought it was very funny. They do kind of just have like the same handful of jokes that they just kind of tell in different ways, which is like the main one, obviously, is that it is cold in Calgary, Canada, and it is not cold in Jamaica, and these guys are freezing. So we have various instances of them being cold, them buying coats. One of my favorite moments actually is right before their second heat or something. They go, "What do you got in there?" And Sanka pulls out like a hot water bottle, and John Candy takes it. And he goes, "Give me that!" And
He
you see
just
he
throws
throws
it.
it, and then you hear off screen it go.
Yeah.
You hear it like a little squash noise. That to me, for whatever reason, was unintentionally funny. And Sanka with his helmet having to get smashed down because he's got too much hair. The egg, Sanka, you dead? That whole bit. And then they get a lot of mileage out of just the basic concept of what if a bunch of people from a really hot climate had to go to a really cold climate. So what are some more of your favorite like jokes or lines from this movie?
See, and like I struggled with them so much because they felt so like lowest hanging fruit
Mm.
for the kids is what I'm telling myself. And so like I don't come at me, everybody, but like I can't tell you I actually laughed watching this.
Oh, okay, that's fair.
I didn't. You know what? Actually, I did, and it was more out of surprise when he said something about "I've known you since what's her name asked to see your dingaling."
Yeah.
I had to back it up and go, "Did he
Excuse
say
me.
that?"
See, and
Yeah,
there were
they're
some moments like that stood out to me because I was like, this movie's PG. There's another moment where they're trying to name their sled. And he's like, how about Tallulah? And everybody makes
right.
fun of it. And Dougie Doug goes, that sounds like a $2 hooker. And I went, this is a PG movie.
They
And
showed
I
this
had
to
More
me
never
in the
heard that
gym.
before. Yeah.
more explicitly, more explicitly too. When that one Swiss guy is teasing them, John Candy's like, he's one of the world's best bobsledders, and Yule goes, He's also one of the world's biggest assholes. I was like, he just blatantly said asshole in this PG movie. That's crazy to me.
There was David,
Mm-hmm.
you mentioned the parts where they were going through kind of montaging certain parts. And I felt,
Mm-hmm.
I can't remember, I'm going through my notes, but I haven't been able to find it again. But like, there's a moment where it was like, they had a Rocky-esque montage where
Mm.
they were really struggling and they finally took it seriously, but it was all in the cold. And so it made me think of that Rocky 4 montage where he is out, like, I don't know, carrying a sled through the snow. Do you remember that, Josh, at all?
Yeah, I kind of do.
So
And
there
I
was some.
think
Go ahead. Sorry.
I was just gonna say with that kind of stuff, like it's humorous, but that's where I got to where I'm like, I get it. They don't get cold a lot. Okay. But
Definitely.
that's to like, I think for the younger audience.
For sure. I mean, it is like, repetitive nature of it all. Tell them once, tell them again, tell them a third time because, you laugh at the same kind of patterns. And so I think that is probably something that was built in to the
Yeah.
movie to keep it consistent. Same thing with but it also delivers in some of those other moments where like the Sanka you dead. And then at the very end when they have crashed and it's flipped. And this had come after John Candy had given Doris a speech about being a leader and being the team and what kind of person you are when you find out when you're faced with that moment, right? And so it's flipped, and Sanka says, Doris, are you dead? And he goes, no, man, I'm not dead. We're going to finish the race. And then they pick up their sled and they walk across. And so that moment was nice. Again, totally built in, totally purposeful, but that's okay. Especially, again, when you look at it, that this is not meant for us.
I read about the actual crash. One of the bobsledders, incidentally, by the way, in reality, there was the 4-man bobsled team at this Olympics, but 2 of the competitors in the bobsled team also were in the 2-man bobsled because there's a 4-man and there's a 2-man. They didn't cover that in this particular movie, but 2 of them were also in the 2-man bobsled. Anyway, in the actual crash, one of the actual athletes said that the crash was really disorienting and that for a while he didn't even realize they had crashed until he started to feel his helmet start to heat up from the friction of sliding across the ice. And so like his helmet got like super hot and actually I think had slightly like worn through by the time they came to a stop. So that's pretty terrifying, honestly. And
Yeah.
actually, the movie does use some real footage from the crash that happened during that sequence. So I thought that for the most part, they captured the seriousness of that moment pretty well. I thought how scary that would be and how intense bobsledding as a athletic endeavor is.
Yeah, for sure. It scares the bejesus out of me. I don't think I would do it. I read that same story about how their helmets in the real crash skidded against the track for like 200 yards or something like that at 80 miles ish per hour the whole time.
Mm-hmm.
That's crazy. No,
Yep.
thank you.
No.
No, yeah. My wife looked at me at one point and she goes, "Do you think this would be like?" She's watching them go down. She's like, "Do you think this would be like fun or like super terrifying?" And I would be like, "I imagine there's probably a middle ground between this and just going down a regular bobsled on a hill. That's probably fun." But I was like, "This is the most elite level you could do it at. This would probably be terrifying if you stuck a normal person in there."
Yeah.
And it'd be like, skiing is fun, but if you had to ski like an Olympic ski slope, you'd be like, this is not fun.
Yeah.
Right, because you hit anything
Right.
and you're
Yeah.
done.
Yeah. It looks nuts.
Used to be a
Um,
roller coaster at Six Flags over Texas called the Bobsled, and I have ridden that, and that is about as close as I would get
mm,
because at moments the roller coaster is not on a track; it is just kind of guiding across. And like when you think about it, that's scary. And I don't even like roller coasters, or didn't at the time, and I was like, sure, I'll ride the one that doesn't go on the track. Stupid decision. But it also,
terrifying.
whenever it does get on the track, it slams you into it like you have whiplash, and so also not too much fun.
I
So
hate that stuff.
I would argue to say that this would not be fun and it would be terrifying.
Yeah, I got to agree. I don't think I would like it very much. Too fast,
I
too
do want to.
furious.
I want to circle back around to one line from John Candy, and it is his big speech that you mentioned, Garrett. I do think that whatever and like they really took their time and they wrote a pretty good speech for John Candy to write when he's just giving it to the Olympic Committee, and specifically it's this part where he says, They've done everything you've asked for them. They did it all with you laughing in their face. It doesn't matter tomorrow if they come in first or 50th. These guys have gone out there and earned the right to walk into that stadium waving their nation's flag. It's the single greatest honor an athlete can have. That's what the Olympics is all about. And I really thought that it was a moment where I was like, wow, it's weirdly poignant here towards the end of the movie about what the Olympics is supposed to be and what it is, and that the Olympics as an athletic event is about cultural diversity and having as many people and giving as many people that opportunity. I love when you watch the Olympics and you see like them walk in the stadium and you see like a country that has like three guys or three athletes, and it's like, man, they must be like feeling so proud, like they're competing and they're in this huge venue. They're from a small country or a small island. They're the only ones that can represent them. It has to has to make it feel really great. You see America with like 900 people come out.
Yeah.
I don't know. What do you guys think of John Candy in this? I thought he was actually very good.
There's never anything wrong with John Candy. He is always the star of the show anytime he's on screen for me, whether he is, being silly, being serious, or whatever it may be. He does no wrong.
Yeah, he's perfectly what he needs to be in this movie. He's great. He's someone else I was trying to find, but didn't get too deep into whether or not his character's based in any sort of reality. I couldn't find anything about if there really was someone like that who,
like a cheating scandal in the 72 Olympics or something.
And
this was actually the last movie that came out while John Candy was alive.
Yep.
He would have a couple of posthumous films that come out after this. I think Colin Hanks is working on like a documentary about John Candy. I don't know if it's released or not, but he was on Conan's podcast a couple months back, and he said that he thought John Candy was one of those comedians who absolutely had the potential to be like an Academy Award winner. Like he had the characteristics, he had the capability that if he hadn't died when he did, if he had like really gone for it, he thinks he could have pulled it off. He could have had like a Robin Williams-esque turn towards drama. And I believe that.
I do too.
All right. Do we want to get into our final thoughts on this?
Yeah. Let's get into our ratings and final thoughts.
All right. David, it's your pick. Why don't you go ahead and start with yours?
Yeah. Feel the rhythm. Feel the rhyme. Come on now. It's 3 stars time. Here we are. It is a pretty fun movie. I think it does exactly what it wants to be. It's exactly what it wants to be. It is a fun kids movie that, 7 to 10-year-olds will enjoy and has some decent humor. It doesn't necessarily go above, I think. I don't think it really goes above what it wants to be, but it satisfies the criteria well enough. So I give it 3 stars.
Yep, I don't have much difference. I think that this is a really good kids movie. It's got a solid message. It knows what they are wanting to do. But yeah, again, that the Disney wash makes it a 3 stars.
I back exactly what they say and also pick 3 stars. I picked it before we even talked. I'm always excited when we all pick the same review. It's so rare, I think, right?
Sometimes, usually we'll differ by like a half, or 2 of us will be like, 5 stars, and one of us will be like, 4.5, or something like that. It's great when our Katras align.
3 stars,
like Spock and Kirk.
Exactly. All right. Well, that is super exciting. Let's get into the letterbox game here. I've got some some of the most popular reviews here on Letterbox to read. Coming from Rachel Rhodes, we got 4 stars. That 90s color palette, though.
This was, the clothes were very 90s in this.
From Sean, 3.5 stars. It feels good when one of your childhood favorites holds up. A solid flick all around.
I'm happy for them.
And then 3 stars. There isn't a single film in existence that would not be improved by the presence of the Jamaican bobsled team.
Jamaican bobsled team and Uncut Gems.
Yes. So what are we thinking? Who's going first this time? I think we had a change in the leaderboard last time.
Garrett, you're up first. Garrett, you're currently at 12. Josh at 13. I am ahead at 16 right now.
Dang it.
Yep. This is
Oh, I'm
a
sorry,
I
18.
think
I had that number wrong. It's 18.
I think people are going to be in the same vein as us. I just can't decide which side of the 3 stars it's going to be on. That's the teeter that I'm tottering on. I think I'm going to go on the 3.1 side.
Okay, 3.1.
I think I'm gonna. Oh man. I actually think I'm gonna raise you a little bit, Garrett, and go with a 3.4.
I feel like a lot of people are going to give it 3 stars. And I feel like if enough people give it 3 stars, it somehow becomes in the 2 range. So I'm going to say 2.7.
Okay, we got 2.7. We got 3. What did you say, Garrett? 1? 3.1 and 3.4 for me. We are going to not have a direct hit this week. No direct hit. No real change this week, but I am the closest with my 3.4 guess. This movie has a 3.5 actually
Oh,
on Letterboxd.
Wow. Pleasantly
Good for
surprised by
us.
the Letterboxd community.
Yeah.
You got a haunting going on over there, Josh?
Up there.
Yeah, a little bit.
They're eating the drapes.
Yeah.
Well, that means
congratulations,
Josh takes another point. So, David, what are the scores?
So that brings Josh up to 14, and he's just 2 ahead of Garrett, who's at 12, and I am at 18. I was having some hot luck here lately to get me up to 18, but Josh is, within striking distance. Garrett is also. I mean, if I don't win again for the rest of the year, one of you guys will win for sure. So
That
it's
is
still
some solid
anybody's
math
game.
there, David. Yeah.
Thank you. It's still anybody's game. September is not even done yet. Who knows what we'll be reviewing next week. One of you could draw really close.
I want to get into that because you have a chance to weigh in maybe. Depends on when you're listening to this realistically. But we've got a few we've got our audience pick coming up next week. We've got some categories up that you can vote for that people voted for. Football was one. We got golf. We got a lot of submissions for golf. Baseball. And then we had some miscellaneous, and I want to talk about those because I think they're fun. We've got Mighty Ducks that people are voting on, Bring It On, Seabiscuit, and Airbud as our little bonus episodes. So look forward for the audience pick next week.
Yeah, very exciting. All right, that's going to do it for us on this episode. Subscribe to our YouTube channel or in your favorite podcasting app, whichever way you choose to enjoy the show. You can also follow us on Instagram, TikTok, Threads, and Facebook. Let us know what movies you're watching, what you think of the show. We want to hear all of that, of course. And then finally, you can head to somanysequels.com to find all those links and our past episodes. We will see you all next time. Bye.